If you're running a contracting or local service business, roofing, HVAC, plumbing, legal, whatever it is, the phone is probably your number one sales channel. Someone finds you on Google and they don't fill out a form. They call you. So here's a question. Do you actually know which of your marketing efforts are driving those calls? Not your gut feeling. I mean, actual data as to where the people making these calls are finding out about your business. If you're only tracking form fills and website conversions, you're missing a huge piece of the picture. And today I'm going to show you how to fix that. Over the years, I've worked with several different call tracking platforms. And while they all have their strengths and weaknesses, they all basically do the same thing, which is to allow you to see which of your marketing channels are driving phone calls. Today, we're going to look at CallRail, which is a very popular call tracking tool that is relatively easy to use. We'll look at how to set it up, what the interface looks like, and how to connect it to Google Ads, Google Analytics, and your Google Business Profile, which are three of the most popular platforms that local service business owners use to generate calls and measure their effectiveness. And at the end, I want to talk about something that most CallRail tutorials skip entirely, because measuring calls is only half the job. I'll tell you what the other half is. So let's get into it. Here's the problem most local service businesses have. They're running Google Ads, maybe they're doing some SEO work, they've got a Google Business Profile set up, and they're measuring conversions inside Google Ads, usually form submissions, maybe a thank you page visit that fires a conversion pixel. But the phone rings 20 times a day, and quite often none of that is being counted. When you're a local service business and you only measure online conversions, you're essentially flying blind on a huge chunk of your actual lead volume. You might look at a campaign and think it's underperforming and pause it, when in reality it was driving a ton of calls that you just weren't capturing. Call tracking fixes this by giving you a unique tracking phone number or multiple numbers that forward to your real business line. When someone calls that number, the platform logs it. You get the source, the duration, whether it was a first-time caller, and more. Now, you might ask, why should I use a third-party tool like CallRail rather than just using Google's built-in call tracking? Google's native call tracking only measures calls that come directly from Google Ads. That's it. It won't tell you about calls from your Google Business Profile, from organic search, from a direct mail piece, from a referral. CallRail is source agnostic. You get the full picture across every channel, and that's the key distinction. Okay, let me show you around the CallRail interface. I'll keep this quick. The goal is to orient you, not give you a click-by-click tour of every feature and setting. So the CallRail home dashboard gives you a summary view of your total calls, texts, forms. It's basically your daily sanity check. How many calls came in? How many were first-time callers versus repeat? What's the volume trend? On the activity tab right next to that is your live call log. So every inbound call shows up here with the caller's number, the tracking number they called, call duration, and the source. So you can see this caller came from Google Ads. This came from organic. This one came from your GBP listing. You can also listen to recordings directly from this view if you have recording enabled. Reports is where you get into the analysis. You've got your call volume over time, first-time callers versus repeat, calls by source, calls by tracking number. The cost per lead report over here is particularly useful if you're running paid campaigns. It pulls in your spend data and tells you what you're actually paying per inbound call by campaign. CallRail also handles SMS text messaging on this tab right here. So if someone texts your tracking number, it comes into the platform and you can respond right here. For contractors, this is increasingly useful. A lot of customers, especially younger ones, will text rather than call. You don't want those slipping through the cracks. This is a trial account I'm working with here, if you haven't guessed. So this feature isn't enabled until you add a credit card. Now let's talk about the integrations, because this is where CallRail gets genuinely powerful. So the Google Ads integration, which is located right here, lets you match inbound callers to the specific campaigns, ad groups, and keywords that drove them. Once it's connected, those calls show up as conversions inside Google Ads. So your campaigns are actually seeing call data, not just form fills. You get access to the cost per lead report I mentioned, and you can see which keywords are driving calls versus just clicks. This is vastly more accurate than just measuring form conversions alone if you're optimizing a PPC campaign. One important caveat here, and I want to emphasize this, a call is not the same thing as a conversion. A call means someone picked up the phone. It doesn't mean they booked a job. CallRail has AI features that try to analyze call recordings and flag likely conversions, and that's improving, but it's not foolproof yet. The most reliable method is still a human reviewing calls, or having a CRM in the loop where you're manually marking which calls turned into actual customers. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your quote-unquote conversions in Google Ads. Treating raw call volume as a measure of campaign performance alone is entirely misleading. The Google Analytics 4 integration lets you fire custom events when a call comes in, so calls appear in your analytics alongside your other site behavior. It's the same concept as the Google Ads integration, but it has the same limitations. You'll see the call event, but you won't inherently know whether that call became a paying job. It's a signal, but it's not really the true picture. That said, having calls in Google Analytics 4 gives you a much more complete picture of how users are moving through your site before they convert. And that behavioral data is valuable for understanding which pages and which traffic sources are doing the real work. This one is underused and it's worth paying attention to. You can connect CallRail to your Google business profile and assign a unique tracking number to your GBP listing. That number gets shown alongside your real business number. So when someone calls directly from your Google Maps listing, you know it. The important thing here is NAP consistency, name, address, and phone. If you're worried about showing a different number than your main line, CallRail handles this by displaying both your tracking number and your primary contact number. Your real number stays in the system, so it's clean. CallRail integrates with a range of CRMs, HubSpot being the most commonly used one in this space. The CallRail side of that integration is essentially one way. Calls flow into HubSpot as activities, but there's no automatic loop back into CallRail when a deal closes. Now, HubSpot itself does have a way to push conversion data into Google Ads separately from CallRail. If you're on a paid marketing hub plan, you can sync lifestyle stage changes. So when a contact moves to something like customer, that can sync back to Google Ads as a conversion signal. I want to be honest with you about this one because I spent some time digging into it and it's messier than it sounds. First, it requires capturing something called the gCLID or the Google Click ID, a tracking ID that Google attaches to ad clicks. And that's not something that standard HubSpot form does automatically. You typically need a custom field and a script to capture it. Second, even when it's set up correctly, people report that HubSpot shows the event syncing on its end while Google Ads shows nothing, because Google Ads requires you to separately mark that event as a conversion action on its side. And third, even after all that, the numbers in HubSpot and Google Ads are not going to match exactly. A 20 to 30% gap is considered normal. So HubSpot can do it, but it's a real project, custom tracking, 2 systems to configure, and numbers you'll never fully reconcile. That's worth knowing before you assume it's a checkbox you flip on. Here's where I want to land because I think this is the thing that most CallRail and other call tracking platform tutorials don't say clearly enough. Call tracking is essential. If you're running any paid advertising or doing any kind of local SEO for a business that relies on the phone, you absolutely need call tracking. And CallRail is a solid, reliable tool for it. I highly recommend it. But measuring calls is not the finish line. The actual question, the one that matters for your business, is which of these calls turned into a book job? Which marketing channels are producing paying customers, not just call volume? To answer that, you need 2 things. You need a way to record and attribute conversions, not just calls. And you need to push that conversion data back into your ad platforms so they can optimize toward the right signal. In an upcoming video, I'm going to show you how we handle that with our BigQuery reporting stack, pulling call data in, matching it against job revenue, and feeding true conversion signals back into Google Ads, or matching call conversions to organic sources like your Google business profile and your website. That's where the picture really comes together. For now, if you're not doing call tracking at all, start here. Get CallRail set up, connect it to your Google Ads account and your GBP listing, and start building that data set. Even imperfect call data is infinitely better than nothing. If this was useful, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.